As soon as you give politicians power, any kind of power that didn't exist previously, if they can figure out a way to force you into carrying something that lets you enter businesses or lets you do this or lets businesses open, historically, they are not going to give that power up. They find new reasons to use it.
I'll be back.
We have to protect those freedoms at all costs, whether you agree with people's choices or not, because it is the foundation that this country was founded on. Freedom. This idea of freedom, there's so many people that think it's frivolous, it's not important, it's not the main thing that we should be focused on, but it is the literal structure that allows this country to be so fucking amazing. Every single country that's ever existed other than the United States, up until 1776, every fucking country that has ever existed was run by dictators, all of them. This is the first experiment in self-government that actually worked, and it created the greatest superpower the world's ever known. It created the greatest cultural machine, the greatest machine of art and creativity and innovation right fucking here. And how did it do that? It did it through freedom. And as soon as you see something, anything that comes along and inhibits your freedom, you should be very cautious of that thing. You should be very suspicious, because anything that comes along that can inhibit your freedom is, by definition, anti-American.
Prepare for launch. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb. I'm Mark Pukita. We've got 3 great segments for you tonight. The first, we will be discussing the facades and the caricatures in the U.S. Senate race, namely J.D. Vance, Jane Timken, Bernie Moreno, and Josh Mandel. I dare to point it out, and what happens? I get falsely accused of being anti-Semitic, a Nazi, and on and on and on. I'm none of these vile things. But what I am is 100% anti-facade, anti-rhino, anti-establishment, anti-swamp, and anti-corruption. Unfortunately, that also means that I'm often alone in the Ohio Republican Party that is all of those things. Facades, rhinos, swamp creatures, and most importantly, corrupt. Second, we'll discuss the ORP Christmas party. Happy holidays. And my plan to get control of the state's central committee back from swamp creatures to the people of Ohio who are sick of it. Third, we're going to talk policy. We're going to play a little game called Policy Roulette. And after that, a quick campaign update, and then we'll wrap up and talk about the next Truth Bomb. Chris Hicks is with me tonight. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing really well.
So our first segment we're going to tip off tonight, Mark, is about facades. So you got wrongly labeled some things, and what you are, and I know you well, is 100% anti-facade, and we have facades everywhere in this U.S. Senate race. So we're going to dive in some on the facades.
It's raining facades. Raining facades.
Raining facades. And we're going to start with, on facades, we're going to start with a video from the Center for Christian Virtues forum that says step 1 about facades, and something I know that you care about, which is how do these people feel about Rob Portman? Let's kick that off.
Each of you want to replace Rob Portman. Rob Portman has been a terrifically effective senator for Ohio. 2 terms, he outpolled President Trump in 2016 when he was on the ballot with him, and the less we applaud, the more questions we get. So you want to replace Rob. We welcome his endorsement.
Well, first of all, Senator Portman has been a statesman and a great champion for Ohio and America. And so I applaud his leadership. I would welcome his endorsement. I think Senator Portman has been effective for the state of Ohio.
So yes, I would welcome Rob Portman's endorsement. And in fact, Rob Portman is fighting for Ohio.
Yeah, so look, I'd welcome anybody's endorsement. I mean, Hugh or Aaron, if you guys are interested, I'll take it right now. But you know, Rob's done a lot of good things for the state, but
I'd welcome anyone's endorsement.
In terms of Rob Portman's endorsement, of course, he's a voter in Ohio. I want every voter in Ohio. And I get the blessing that he knows me. So, of course, I love his endorsement.
Wow. If that isn't for Rob Portman 2.0's, Chris, I don't know what is.
So we're going to take it a little deeper. And I'm going to finish up that clip. I cut it off a little early, which was Mike Gibbons didn't answer the question about wanting Rob Portman's endorsement. So we don't put him in the same category with these other guys right now.
Certainly not.
But one of the things I think that's funny about the Center for Christian Vultures forum was Hugh Hewitt, the moderator, who asked that question and talked glowingly about Rob Portman. So let's watch the tail end of the clip, the prior clip, and then we're going to see a clip of Hugh Hewitt talking about Rob Portman, and then some more Hugh Hewitt material for those people that might not be familiar with Hugh Hewitt.
Rob Portman has been a terrifically effective senator for Ohio. 2 terms, he outpolled President Trump in 2016 when he was on the ballot with him, and the less we applaud, the more questions we get.
I agree with Rachel Maddow and James Carville.
I'm very sorry, Hugh. I'm sorry.
It is.
That's all the time we have. Good night.
It was an underwhelming performance. His challenge tonight was to drain the toxicity. I want to go back to Nicole Wallace's comments at the beginning of the program tonight. He's entered into the most toxic region in America. He's gotten race wrong 3 times with his down the Trump Tower speech on Mexican illegal immigrants being rapists, with the David Duke KKK comment, and then with the worst 72 hours of his campaign over the last 3 days. In this speech, he wasn't just tin-eared, it was cobalt-eared at the end when he said, "We will take care of our African Americans." And I actually cringed when I heard that. But I was at the end of this saying, Paul Ryan is still thinking about that Daily News cover today that said, "I'm with racists," perhaps the most bludgeoning cover I've seen since the Drop Dead cover for Gerald Ford. I don't think he did anything to stop the panic. I'm with James Carville. I think a lot of people are still looking at the plane is headed towards the mountain. This could be 2006 again. And then they began to realize over the last 24 hours, he could lose the House, the Senate, governorships, state legislatures. It's a panic mode. And Mr. Trump,
are you going
to
ask anybody else a question? Every single question comes to me.
Mr. Trump,
I know I'm good for the ratings, but it's a little bit ridiculous.
No, but Mr. Trump, a year ago, you told me on my radio show, the audio and the transcript are out there on YouTube, that you would release your tax returns. True. Are you going back on your
No, I'm not.
commitment?
First of all, very few people listen to your radio show. That's the good news. Let me just tell you. Which happens to be true. Check out the ratings.
So that is Hugh Hewitt.
Hugh is the consummate never Trumper, California swell guy, insider who, panders to that MSNBC crowd. I mean, did you see that? I mean, that was like a package on MSNBC. It wasn't just happenstance that they pull that newspaper up. I mean, he planned that with them. That's how just kind of inside the swamp beltway he is.
So why do you think then that Hugh Hewitt is the moderator for these forums, and what does it say about the candidates and the kind of crowd these people hang in?
Well, I don't really have a great answer to that, Chris, other than it would appear that the CCV, the Center for Christian Vultures, as you like to call it, is part of the swamp, and that these folks, just are pandering to it. Their facades, their caricatures, they say one thing in this audience and they'll say something in another.
So would you have, if you had been on that stage, you were blocked from the stage because you're not the popular kid in school, you're not allowed to sit at the cool kid lunch table. Right. Had you been asked that question, did you want Rob Portman's endorsement? What would your answer have been?
Absolutely not. I will tell you, if Rob Portman's endorsement was the difference between winning and losing, I wouldn't take it. I'd take the loss rather than take the endorsement.
But why? He's a statesman and everything, isn't he?
Yeah, he's about as much of a statesman as I don't want to say the wrong thing and be called something else tonight. Rob Portman has not been good for Ohio. I'm the only candidate in this race that will say it. Everybody else is afraid of his clout and his money. I'm not. I'm the only candidate that registered to primary him. All the other kids got in when it became cool.
But why do you think that nobody, they all just kind of, except for Gibbons, who didn't answer the question, why do you think they're all so comfortable with that? And why do you think that the, Center for Christian Virtues is so comfortable with this kind of crowd that's the Rob Portman is the greatest, walks on water senator we've had in a long time in Ohio?
Because I think they subsist. They exist on the swamp. They get their money from the swamp. They get their money from the establishment. And these people in this race are either insiders, Chris, like a Jane Timken, and I would actually put Josh Mandel in that category because he's been running for so long, or they're near insiders. They're people who want to be inside, so they won't criticize the ORP. They won't criticize Mike DeWine. They won't criticize Rob Portman because they want to be Rob Portman 2.0s. I mean, that's what they want to do.
So we said we're going to break down 4 people that we think are facades.
Yep.
And that's J.D. Vance, Jane Timken, Bernie Moreno, and your favorite Josh Mandel. So let's start with J.D. Vance. And here is a current ad that's running about J.D. Vance, and we'll talk about, but it'll be interesting to get your reaction to this, Mark.
J.D. Vance, in his own words.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. As somebody who doesn't like Trump, I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for Trump because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious, him being really outrageous and offensive.
On Twitter, Vance called Trump, quote, reprehensible, an idiot, and Vance loves Mitt Romney.
I'm a never Trump guy.
That's the real J.D. Vance. Club for Growth Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
Okay, so that's J.D. Vance. What's your reaction to that particular ad?
Well, I think that ad is spot on. I mean, those are J.D. Vance's words, either spoken or written, and that ad is spot on. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that ad, I think, when we talk about Josh Mandel, because that ad is from Club for Growth PAC, or one of the Club for Growth PACs. But I mean, Hugh Hewitt is the perfect moderator for J.D. Vance, right? They're both California swells. J.D. Vance is raising all of his money in California, some in New York. He's not raising it in Ohio. All of his endorsements are coming from the cool kids around the country, but not in Ohio. And Hugh Hewitt is probably like, can't wait to max out his $2,900, primary. J.D. Vance.
So Vance movement. Why don't you hit a little bit on Vance? His never Trumper background, working at National Review. The stuff in the ad is true, but it's a Club for Growth ad that's trying to buy Josh Mandel's seat for him. But when you look at J.D. Vance's background in 2018, he was supposed to run.
Yeah, he was a big favorite of Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell and Rob Portman actually were urging him to run in 2018, and for some reason he didn't do it. Well, but he's back.
I think a big reason he didn't do it is all the never Trumper stuff was fresh right then, and there was no way that Donald Trump was going to. So over the objection of Rob Portman and of Donald Trump, Rob Portman and Mitch McConnell told J.D. Vance, I guess, to wait around in East Walnut Hills in Cincinnati for another couple of years, and maybe we could scrub all the internet.
He had to age like a fine wine.
Well, so So that's JD Vance. The next one is Jane Timken. So Jane Timken, we're going to play a couple video segments on Jane Timken. You can comment along the way, Mark.
Yep.
But also at the end as well. And I have a couple charts on Jane Timken as well. I'm going to throw up on the screen. But let's go into Jane Timken, our second on the fraud list.
He continues to fight for our conservative values while fighting and protecting Ohio from the COVID pandemic, and is doing a fantastic job leading Ohio. Please welcome our great governor, Governor DeWine. Thank you for being here, Governor.
Thanks, Jane.
So that's one, her love for Governor DeWine.
I think you'll notice. Yeah, I think I'll notice a pattern in these things. Jane has a great propensity for liking something before she doesn't, or disliking something, before she does like it. I would call that flip-flopping and/or fence sitting, depending upon
By the way, that clip is from a state central committee meeting when they did them. When COVID was going on, they did them online, and they were recorded. Shockingly, they don't record them anymore. So one of the good things about COVID was that some of those things got recorded, and that which you're proud of, you put out on live stream. That which you're not proud of, you make sure that there's no video of.
That's called burying it.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about Urban Meyer and Josh Mandel's ads as something we can't find anywhere. So let's go another Jane Timken clip. This is actually a different clip.
2022, Ohioans need to re-elect Governor DeWine so that we can continue to grow the state's economy, and he will protect Ohio's values, the right to bear arms, and the unborn. Senator Portman and all the other 5 statewide candidates will face the ballot box as well. We must stand with our Republican incumbents as they continue their public service. I do not. I think it's very important for the primary voters to make their choice. And they can't go wrong. We have great candidates in all of our statewide races in 18.
So that was Jane Timken. 2 clips there, Mark. One was from a state central committee meeting where Portman's name came up, and the other one was her in 2018 talking about ORP, the Ohio Republican Party, having endorsements.
Right. She's the quintessential insider. She'll also appear. It also appears that she'll say, Chris, whatever she needs to say to get adulation and a vote from the crowd. The unwillingness to put in place a policy to keep the ORP from doing primary endorsements, which we all know rigs the game. Her continued support of Rob Portman, Anthony Gonzalez, and Mike DeWine, when the Republican grassroots can't stand any one of those candidates, it's just counter. I mean, if you want a Rob Portman 2.0, Jane is probably the closest to that. She'd be exactly Rob Portman 2.0.
And I think she's very comfortable with the Hugh Hewitt crowd in the Center for Christian Virtues crowd.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
put up here, Mark, this is a chart, and it is a list. Jane Timken prides herself on having the highest number of swamp endorsements. In Ohio. and so she has party officials, state central committee. Over half of the state central committee has personally endorsed her, which says a lot already. I put 2 names on here, 2 people from where I live, Claremont County, Greg Simpson, our party chair, and Aaron Moss, our co-chair, our central committee vice chair, have already publicly endorsed Jane Timken for Senate. I don't think they talked to you or called you, but
they certainly didn't call me.
So that by the way was after in Claremont County, the people on the central committee voted that there shouldn't be any primary endorsements coming from the Ohio Republican Party in 2022. So what's your experience as you get out there and you deal with more party apparatus in different counties? What's your experience, Mark, with what you see?
Chris, the majority, I would say, of the county parties are just as bad, if not worse, than the Ohio Republican Party. They're manipulated. It's almost, in some cases, it's like a dictatorship. I've been to a lot of these parties, to central committee meetings at the county level, or meeting them at the fairs. I was at all the fairs this summer. And, I would take people along with me, volunteers, family members, to the fairs. And the minute you walked into the booth, you could tell whether they were a swamp organization or not. We got really good at leaving only 1 or 2 signs there because we knew they were going to be thrown in the dumpster the minute we left. I mean, seriously. And we'd have people go back in a half hour and say, hey, all your stuff is gone. And I'm like, listen, everybody didn't take it. It didn't go that fast. We left a lot of literature there, and it's gone already. So seriously, this is the kind of stuff that goes on in some party or county organizations.
And by the way, Timken is the darling of that crew, of the Insider.
Oh yeah.
Most people know Insider. People that are aware of the Inside know that Bob Paduchek is a DeWine and Timken man. And that's one of his big jobs as party chair, is to get DeWine and Timken endorsed by the Ohio Republican Party. Now let's move.
Now you said endorse. There is a difference between being endorsed and being elected, right? And so he wants to get endorsed people that are highly unelectable in the general election.
In the primary, so that the Republican voters don't have as much say as to them being, as to where they go. So let's go to our second person we're going to talk about. Is Bernie Moreno. So I put this up on Bernie Moreno. So not that long ago, there was an article about Bernie Moreno in 2016, and I'm going to hit a couple of the highlights of it, and we're going to have a video of Bernie Moreno here in a little bit. But this article, it says Ohio Republican Senate candidate running as Trump ally once called him a maniac. And there's a lot more involved with this than just that. Now Bernie Moreno is supposedly a Trump guy. But here's some clips from the article. Moreno, according to emails obtained by NBC News, bashed Trump as a lunatic and a maniac. I am hardcore, is a quote from Bernie Moreno. I am a hardcore true believer in the party, but if Donald Trump is nominated, I will consider that a hostile takeover and no longer associate myself with that new GOP. And then he says, talking about Reince Priebus, who was the national party chair of the GOP, he says, at the time, I completely get the position Reince is in, and he is doing the best he can with a lunatic invading the party. So, and he also closes email saying, Moreno closed the email prophetically. The worst part for me, this is talking about Trump. The worst part for me is, he wrote, I think he can beat Hillary. The worst thing for Bernie Moreno was that Trump might be able to beat Hillary. And then the last clip out of this article is, given that I see a future where Trump is the leader of what used to be my party, I've sidelined myself. I will support individual candidates, but can't support a party led by that maniac, referring to Donald Trump. So, Mark, what's your reaction to some of those comments from Bernie Moreno that are back from 2016?
Yeah. So what I would say to Ohio voters is, do you really want a guy that is angry that a Republican, Donald Trump, might be elected over Hillary Clinton? Just think about that. That is the most amazing logic. I can't even hold those thoughts in my head. And then, Chris, I've noticed in those emails, there's very much almost an imperialistic view to it. Like, I won't do this. I won't do that. I will do this. I will do that. I will cut the money off. I won't be part of this party. It's nothing about the grassroots, the people, the country. It's all about, it would appear, Bernie's ego.
So I'm going to put up, Mark, here is the next piece on Bernie Moreno. He was just in a interview not that long ago in which with the Jewish Insider. So he was just in an interview with the Jewish Insider. And I'm going to put up here, they asked him a question about Trump in this past. And this is his response. I didn't know anything about Donald Trump other than what I saw on TV. Remember, this is from 2021. This is just recent. Other than what I saw on TV. I thought he was a liberal. I thought he was a Democrat. I thought he was somebody who I saw pictures of with Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer. I thought he was somebody who was not a serious candidate, who was making a mockery of the Republican primary. And I want you to remember this line, but I kept my mouth shut publicly. And then it says below, I said that Trump was a lunatic and a maniac, and I didn't think he was a conservative. So that is from the Jewish Insider article. And any reactions? It's good that he kept his mouth shut, right?
Yeah, right. That isn't that what the insiders do, Chris? Don't the insiders like set up strategy and talk badly about someone and diss them, and then are really nice to their face?
Right.
I mean, that's what that would be the most insincere kind of thing that's one of the most insincere kind of things that I've ever seen. And it's also a lie. It's like, oh, I didn't really know him. I thought this. I mean, from the prior emails, it's pretty, how do you hate someone as much as he hated Trump? How are you that big of a Trump hater without knowing him?
Well,
right?
how do you not, how do you not know Donald Trump at that point in time? If you're a heavy into politics, I like to say to people, I heard a commentator once say that one of the things about Donald Trump was not only was a businessman and a celebrity, but the show he was on as a celebrity, The Apprentice, it showed America how he made decisions over and over and over and over and over again. So that one of a commentator that I happen to agree with made the comment that America kind of knew how Donald Trump thought. It wasn't like he was just in his Home Alone 2 cameo. He was on a show that showed you every week how he thought and how he interacted with people.
And Bernie's saying he doesn't want people to know how he's thinking. He wants to have a facade, but he wants to, in the back.
Remember, in 2016, Bernie has all these emails. In 2021, he says, I kept my mouth shut. Well, here's Bernie in 2019.
Steve online is asking about your support of the Trump campaign, President Trump.
No, my daughter works on Trump 2020, and she's free to do that. We have a vigorous debate at home about politics, and my daughter works on the Trump campaign. That doesn't mean that I support the Trump campaign.
Okay.
That's a different story. You can interview my daughter if you like.
That was almost a male Kamala Harris-like cackle right there. Ha, ha, ha. You got to ask someone else about the Trump campaign. Think about that.
Well,
and that was when? 2019?
Yes. And I think it's what's funny is I found that video, and at the time I found it only had under 1,000 views. Which
sure can have more views now.
In Cleveland. And so this is 2019. So Trump was president for more than 2 years at the time that took place. And remember, he says, it doesn't say, he says, it's a different story, is the actual words he says. My daughter's on the Trump campaign. I'm a different story. So that's 2 years after Trump is president. So
he's still thinking about Hillary.
Yeah. And you and I know maybe Bernie Moreno's daughter is pretty prominent within this campaign.
Right. She's his campaign manager. She's also the fiance of Max Miller, who's running for Anthony Gonzalez's seat against Jonah Schultz. So it's a big tie-up up there with the moneyed families in Cleveland.
Well, let me put this up. So one of the things too is that you mentioned Anthony Gonzalez, and Bernie was a big giver to Anthony Gonzalez, and then I was digging a little deeper in this because you're actually one that told me about this. But it turns out Bernie was a big giver to Josh Mandel.
Wow. How did I miss that, Chris?
So it's almost $40,000 to Josh Mandel. So I guess he's had a change of heart on Josh Mandel.
He liked Josh before he didn't like him.
But that is Bernie Moreno. So we're going to go then into, I guess our next up is going to be none other than your current nemesis or guy you talk about more, you get accused of talking about more, you talk about all of them, but which is Josh Mandel. And I'm actually going to start by putting up a image here that is again from the Jewish Insider article that was an interview by Bernie Moreno, and because he talks about Josh Mandel a little bit within this article, and so he answers a reporter. Remember, it was an interview where he's answering questions, and he's answering a question, and it says it is talking about Josh. It says, when somebody's chased a title and a position so many times, you've got to ask, is it really about doing the right thing for the country, or is it really about getting a job for yourself to make money in the future? And so that is Bernie Moreno's comment within that article. And then he goes on, there's another question that gets asked, and it's the Jewish Insider asked, the top part is, your comments would seem to be directed at Mandel. In typical excellent political fashion, Moreno kind of changes a little bit. He says, I didn't like to speak ill about anyone by name. I think voters don't like that. They know what I am talking about, AKA I'm talking about Josh Mandel.
Right.
And when they see not just one opponent that you may have mentioned, but others who use trigger words or say and do things to get attention. Use trigger words or say or do things to get attention. And Josh Mandel has always, I think, been known for this.
Right.
But it has really gone over the top. And I wanted to start with that. And we're going to build up to the whole, what did you say, Josh Mandel? You pointed out to people that Josh Mandel was Jewish, and that caused you to be demonized. But we're going to build up to that part and hit on it. And we're going to start with a video of Josh Mandel about fighting Kasich. Anybody who has seen Josh Mandel knows on the campaign trail, how often does he talk about fighting Kasich, Mark?
All the time. He's a thorn in the side. He fought him hard. He called him out. I'm surprised that he hasn't been arrested for assaulting John Kasich.
So let's watch a video about John Kasich.
When Kasich was governor, I was state treasurer, and I was the biggest thorn in this guy's side. I took him on when he was trying to do the Medicaid expansion under Obamacare. I led the charge against him. When he was trying to do Common Core and take the federal money and have the federal government involved in their education, I led the charge against him. When he was trying to keep the state's finances in the dark, I said the people of Ohio have a right to know how the tax money is being spent. I put the state of Ohio's checkbook online, and I transferred the power from the politicians to the people.
So now let's listen to this clip of him talking about
Kasich. Now we're out here with the quarterback of our state, the guy who's leading the economic recovery here in the state of Ohio. When this gentleman came in to the governor's office, we had an $8 billion operating budget deficit. He took us from $8 billion in the red to a surplus. He's leading the charge for the United States of America when it comes to creating jobs. And in my mind, this is someone who's already changed Washington, and he's someone who's going to help Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan become the next president and vice president of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, our governor, John Kasich.
Sounds like it was a real thorn in the side.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to try to figure out whether Josh wanted to be Big Spoon or Little Spoon. Like, what is going on there, right? Like, seriously. I mean,
well,
he'll say anything. Chris, I think we've found over the years with Josh, he'll say anything to appease or appeal to the crowd. He's going to kind of tell people what they want to hear. He's going to tell them something in Cincinnati in the morning and something different in Cleveland in the evening. He's a facade. He's a fake. He's just a caricature. He reminds me of P.T. Barnum, the circus master.
Well, but so on this front, he's also well rehearsed. Now you have the deficiency of this is your first time running for office. You're a true citizen candidate. He's a well-experienced candidate.
Right.
And some of the act, just gets repackaged from place to place. So let's listen to this Josh Mandel take talking about, you'll hear what it's talking about.
over my dead body. Will 1 penny of your tax money pay for illegal immigrants as long as veterans are living under cardboard boxes on the streets? For any of these folks trying to stand between us and affordable, reliable, dependable energy, we have 4 words for them: over our dead bodies.
So you have Josh.
Same style,
there.
same packaging, same words.
And when you're get closer to Josh because you're up on stage with him, everything, and does he appear to be dead to you?
No, Josh is in some ways I kind of feel sorry for Josh. I don't think he has a lot of friends. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. It doesn't appear to have a lot of people that are close to him.
But it's constant, like, over my dead body stuff. Over my dead
I
body.
see what you're saying.
Over my dead body.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But also when he uses that kind of hyperbole, I mean, listen, he's going to be one of 100 senators. He's not going to stop anything unless he can work with people. And I'll tell you, with that style, he can't work with people. But I'll tell you, with the red meat, I think he is probably the least electable in the general election candidate in the U.S. Senate race right now. He has pandered so far to the right and with the hyperbole that I think it's impossible for him to get elected.
I think when he dropped out of the 2018 race, he alienated a lot of the donor class.
Yeah, the donor class for sure, because, and you and I have heard this direct from Jim Renacci. He was asked to move money when he dropped out by large donors to his campaign, to Renacci's campaign. They were going to support Renacci, who replaced, who slid in after Josh got out, and he refused to do it because, and Jim, I think, said because he was just planning on running again. It was like he dropped out, but he's constantly running. He's never had a job that isn't paid for by the taxpayers. Now, he did serve in the Marines, right?
Which is honorable.
Which is absolutely honorable, and he was in some really bad places. But that alone is not qualification for being a U.S. senator. And I think right now we need transparency and honesty. We don't need actors and facades. We need statesmen.
Well, let's get on to it. We danced around it with the Fighting Kasich and the Over My Dead Body, Josh Mandel act in reinvention of history. Let's play. I'm going to play first real quick the ad that kind of got played one time and caused a little firestorm.
Are we seriously supposed to believe the most Christian values Senate candidate is Jewish? I am so sick of these phony caricatures.
Oh, I agree. If we keep electing people like this, we'll just keep getting the same terrible results.
I like Pukita. He's authentic, unlike these other people. You can learn more about him at markforohio.com. That's Mark, the number 4, Ohio.com.
I'm Mark Pukita, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Okay, so that was the ad that played during this Citizens Center for Christian Virtue or Vultures event. Now, what were you trying to point out in that ad? Did you feel the message was you were trying to convey in that ad, Mark?
The message was that Josh will pander to anybody in any way that they want him to get their vote and their support. So he's going around to evangelical Christian churches and is pandering for votes there in a way that I think is not being transparent. And I just wanted to point it out because I have talked to people. We've got people on our team that have said that, they would meet people after one of Josh's events and they'd say, I'm supporting Josh Mandel. How can I support your candidate, Mark Pukita? And, they would say, well, Mark has these values or whatever. And here's what they'd say. They'd say, yeah, but I'm really supporting Josh because he's such a fervent evangelical Christian. And they're like, no, he's not. And
I think the key is that the frauds and facades, and people that are willing to change their stripes, do whatever, say whatever, to get elected. how this manifests itself. We're gonna get closer to the third rail here in just a couple of clips from just a couple of recent two events.
Our first church town hall we did was at a small church in the middle of a soybean field in Bucyrus, Ohio. We were hoping to have 50 people there. That night in Victory and Truth Ministries, we had 250 people show up at that church. We went on to First Nazarene, 270 people in Findlay. Washington Heights Baptist Church in Dayton, 300 people showed up. Solid Rock Church in Lebanon, 500 people showed up. We were at Community Grace Brethren Church in the middle of a cornfield in West Milton, Ohio. 600 people showed up.
When I go to Washington, I'm not going to listen to the Republican leaders. I'm going to use two documents as my guide. The Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other.
Yeah, Chris, this is 0% about anti-Semitism. It's actually 0% about faith. It has the argument I was making about Josh has nothing to do with faith. It has everything to do with him being a facade. And the dirty little secret, the inside baseball secret is, as I'm talking to other candidates in our race, they're all saying the same thing behind the scenes, that he's just a facade and a caricature.
Well, what's so bizarre to me, and I've said this to you, and I'm willing to stand on the third rail, is if you actually had a Christian evangelical that behaved the way Josh did while campaigning for Senate, they would get attention negatively, just that. I mean, but it's it's just so bizarre because it's so over the top, and it's so. And I've been to one of his events, and it's so red meat. It's unnecessarily over the top red meat that I think, he lost by 6 points before, and I personally feel like if he got through the primary, I think he'll decay from here, because I think you're actually bringing attention to the facade element of Josh Mandel, and he's trying to make everybody think he's the front runner and is unbeatable.
I think his best day polling wise was the day he announced.
So, well, but he does a lot of his own polls that say things and say whatever about him. One of the other things too is he's well known for being his campaign being toxic, for these bizarre behaviors, dating his campaign staff. It's just bizarre stuff, and has nothing to do with faith or what faith somebody is. And I get along with all faiths that are people of goodwill and that want to be better people and want to make for a better United States. And
I think the point, I think the point here, Chris, is that it's fine to say that you believe in Judeo-Christian values that made our country great. But the question is, do you act on those values or not? And I believe that there is lots of publicly available information out there that says that Josh, crosses the line or whatever. And, none of us are perfect, but the hyperbole and the red meat and kind of the facade is really something else.
So I'm going to play one last clip, and then we're going to move on, and we're going to do segment 2 and segment 3 real quick, because we get talking too much here. And so it came up during the thing. If people remember the first Ohio Press Network forum, you guys got asked who had been vaxxed and who hadn't, not by you, but by Jack Windsor.
Right.
And everybody would answer except Josh when it refused to answer the question. Yeah. So it came up again at the second Ohio Press Network forum. And here's the video of that.
I saw very few of the folks on stage and the folks, as Bernie said, who weren't courageous enough to be here, out on the protest line with me against vax mandates or masks. It's one thing to talk. It's another thing to act. I'm also the only one up here. Matt was not with us the last time, who's not vaxxed. Jack asked us the question last time, and we answered. The only person who didn't answer was Josh. Josh, do you want to answer tonight?
Yeah, my personal feeling is it is not right for the government or the media or anyone to ask us if we're vaccinated. So my feeling is, for all of us out there,
I got 17 seconds.
All right. I thought you were inviting me up.
No,
Sorry.
I want you to answer. I want you to answer. If we keep electing people like Josh, we're going to keep getting the same results, and they stink, right? They
Time
stink.
is up.
Yeah. I mean, there's a classic example of trying to ride the fence to play both ends, hoping the polling works and wiggling your way through. And that's what we've had for half a century in the Republican Party. We keep hiring the same people. We keep electing the same people. And when they get to Washington, they turn on us. They do what's best for them, not for us. And, I think one of the indications of that with Josh is who's backing him. The Club for Growth is backing him. Club for Growth loves to buy Senate races so they can get their agenda done. Not the agenda of Ohioans, not the agenda of the American people, but the agenda of Club for Growth and their big donors or sponsors. So that's just listen, I am all for, if you want to be vaxxed, Chris and I don't, great, vice versa on masks and things like that. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-masker. But I think that politicians, I keep hearing all the time, politicians are held to a different standard, and you've got to answer and you've got to share things. I'm getting pelted with those kind of questions, but it appears Josh is Teflon, and he chooses not to answer.
Well, so we went through all four of those candidates: Vance, Timken, Moreno, and Mandel. Let's move on to our second segment. We're going to do the next two segments in about 5 minutes each. We're going to rail through them as best we can, Mark. But our second segment.
So we've got a plan to take back the State Central Committee. So for those who are unaware, the Ohio Republican Party State Central Committee has 66 members. It's comprised of people from the 33 Ohio Senate district, one male, one female from each district. They'll be elected in the May 3rd primary next year. And to qualify for State Central Committee for ballot access, you only need 5 good signatures on a petition. So, you can walk to your next door neighbor's houses and, assuming they're Republican voters, you're good to go. We're going to target 10 to 15 districts because there's 66 members. If we can get, we can get 15 districts, 30 members plus the malcontents that we've got right now. We can take out the swamp, and we're going to do these, Chris, in teams of 2 in the districts in 2. So we can kind of double up mailing. So we'll be supporting candidates as a pair in these districts. We'll give them mail and other support. And if anybody is interested in running, you want to take back the Ohio Republican Party from swamp members, you can send an email with your interest to info@markforohio.com. Once again, that's info@markforohio.com. We've got to take back the Ohio Republican Party.
But what about the Christmas party, Mark? Let's get on to the Christmas party.
Yeah. So the next ORP Central Committee meeting is Friday, December 3rd. The evening before, Thursday, December 2nd, is the Christmas party. And we're going to buy a block of tickets. And anybody who would like to go, so if someone would like to go, they should send us an email to info@markforohio.com. This is where all the cool people will be hanging out. Now, if you look at it, it goes from 6:30 to 9. Now, I have parties that 9 o'clock is when the cool kids come fashionably late for an 8 or 8:30 party. But these guys wrap up at 9. It must be because they're so excited to get to bed to get up for a State Central Committee meeting the next morning. But we're going to have an after party nearby, and we're not going to tell you where it is because we don't want, Bob Paduchek and his cabal to come over and, rain on our parade. So we just want to go hang out and, with normal people and not talk about corruption and stuff like that. Not how we can line our pockets and cover up accounting deficiencies. We just want to have a good time.
Well, I think though that we're going to tell everybody eventually where the after party is, and Bob Paduchik is welcome.
He
So you always got to extend an
everybody's
olive
welcome.
branch for them.
We love them all. We love
to
them all.
head on over. But it'll be very interesting to see in the state central committee meeting the next day, which is on Friday the 3rd, if they'll try to pull an endorse Mike DeWine thing again way before the filing deadline. We all know they already endorsed Pat DeWine. I hope somebody makes a motion to rescind Pat DeWine's endorsement. We'll end up losing the Supreme Court with Pat DeWine on the ballot.
Yeah, we definitely need a resolution from the floor on that.
So let's get in with that. Let's get into our third segment, Mark. Okay, so this segment is all about your policy agenda. And we call it Policy Roulette is the name of this segment. So people might know that Mark has a 7-point agenda, which is the big things. And then he has a 21-point document that is on every area of policy. And it's online. You can go see it online. And there's also printed copies of it. I'm partial to the printed copies of it. And we're going to do what's called Policy Roulette with Mark Pukita. And he's got and here's what I've done. I'm going to put myself big screen here for a second, Mark, is I took all 21 policy areas and I put them in this. I'm not too good at doing this. I put them in this bucket on poker chips. You can see in there's a poker chip for each one. I put them in there and I'm going to randomly draw them out. And it's not rigged. And when we go through these calls, maybe we'll have a call where we do a bunch of them, but we're time pressed here. And I'm going to draw one out and it is number 9. Number 9 is the policy area for Policy Roulette with Mark Pukita. And area number 9 is.
So if we go to the card, Chris, policy card, area number 9 is firearm rights and hunting. So let's talk about that. The first item on the policy card under firearm rights and hunting is national constitutional carry, because the Second Amendment gives us that right. So I believe the Second Amendment already gives us that right. I would legislate and support legislation in Washington to get constitutional carry consistent across every state, so we don't have different laws that we need to be working with. Point number 2 under firearm rights and hunting is bring back Teddy Roosevelt style conservation to open up more hunting. Teddy Roosevelt was a big believer in, hunting to thin herds and things like that. We've seen the way that the federal and state governments own over a third of the land in the United States. So we need to get back to Teddy Roosevelt style kinds of conservation. The third point under firearm rights and hunting is firearms training in high school, so all citizens know how to safely handle weapons and also understand weapons. We've heard, for example, Joe Biden call an AR-15 an AR-13 or 14 or 16. I mean, he comes up with a new number every time, right? This used to happen in American schools, but it no longer happens. And point number 4 is end the folly of honor system gun-free zones like college campuses. So on college campuses, you're not allowed to have a firearm unless, of course, you want to do someone harm. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and we need to end those kind of things. We need to end that kind of folly.
Well, and people got to understand the difference between a secured firearm-free zone, like a courthouse or an airport, where you go through screening, and the notion that criminals are going to just follow a sign that says, "Don't bring your firearm in here." Okay, so that was one. I'm going to reach in here and pull out another one, and it is number 20. Number
20. 21 is
on there.
state.
Number 20.
So let's see. 20. Oh, state and local. Our policy on state and local. Point number 1 is start a war on corruption and urban decay in liberal dominated cities. And I believe that this has to be done. You can't expect the same people who have run these cities into the ground to fix them. So we've got to step in and we've got to fix that urban decay. I mean, we have some amazing cities that have just gone downhill, and we need to get them back in shape. Point number 2 is see costly failed social programs that create dependency on today's slavery, or as today's slavery. So we've got to see costly failed social programs creating that dependency, which is today's slavery. You know, we've got people who 54%, I believe, of the people in the United States are on some kind of entitlement program from the government. And that is not allowing these people to live their good lives. We need to make poverty uncomfortable enough so people want to get out of it. And we have to give them a route with, of course, a robust economy and great education, excellence in education, so they can move forward and be a productive and contributing member of society. We absolutely, point number 3, we need to get broadband and cellular into rural areas. It is stunning to me that we haven't done this already. This is a can that's been kicked down the road far too long. And we electrified the country. Think about that. In the middle of nowhere, you can get electric, but you can't get cellular and you can't get broadband. This is keeping especially rural communities and counties in Ohio and along the river. It is keeping them back, and they are just they're just praying that someone will help them out. It will help them get more business, prove their economy. Also help, for example, because of that, the opioid crisis and things like that. There are other benefits. Point number 4 under state and local is fight Trojan horse federal programs that coerce state and local governments, including schools. So, Chris, we have all this money that we send to the federal government, and about close to half of our budget for the state of Ohio comes back from the federal government, and it comes back with strings attached. And that's the way they control what we do in Ohio with our own money. And we've seen this kind of thing with CRT and things of that nature in schools. We've seen it with the CDC and masking and vax mandates. There is coercion going on right now with employers for mandating the vax. If we had government out of that, if they weren't coercing at the state and federal level companies to mandate the vax, we wouldn't be having vax mandates, I believe. And then finally, point number 5, we need to transform Ohio into a desired state for relocation. Right now, Mike DeWine is allowing Ohio to turn into District 12 on the Hunger Games. We have got great resources. We've got the lake, we've got the rivers, we've got incredible agricultural land, we've got the petroleum products for fracking, carbon products for fracking. We should be a net energy exporter of nuclear and coal, carbon-based fuels. We really, if there is no reason why we shouldn't be a destination state for attracting businesses, especially with what's going on the East and West Coast.
So it's funny, Mark, about all that is I had somebody once tell me about glass production and it requiring a huge amount of water. Ohio has a huge amount of water, but in a lot of places we don't have the water infrastructure to be able to move the water to industrial facilities that require large amounts of water. That's an example of sub-optimizing. We're very centrally located for distribution hubs and otherwise, but if the bridge is going to fall down, the Brent Spence Bridge by where I live is going to fall into the river. It makes us less attractive as a distribution hub if the highways are collapsing.
Yeah, and
everywhere.
I-75. I mean, I-75. I've talked about developing a caucus or a committee of I-75 states, because that is an absolute. They call it the Kanban Highway. It's an absolute artery for moving goods, raw materials, and assemblies for the auto manufacturing industry. And we're allowing that artery to be clogged, just like someone who's not had good eating habits gets, clogged arteries and needs a bypass. I mean, seriously.
So people can go to markforohio.com/policy and see this, or go to his website to see the whole guide. You can
Yeah,
You can
it's in the
download
menu.
a copy of it.
It's up on
Or
the
if-
menu. You can see
or
it if you look.
If you go see Mark on the road, you can get a copy from him. Which brings me to, we're going to do two quick little things here, housekeeping things, and it's going to be a quick campaign update.
Yep.
Okay, Mark. So where are you going to be, and what are you going to be doing the rest of this week?
So coming up this week, I'm in Guernsey County tomorrow night. I'm with the Worthington Republicans Women's Club on Wednesday lunchtime, and then I'm with the West Side Republicans at the farm in Cincinnati on Wednesday evening. Thursday is another Ohio Press Network forum in Strongsville. And then it looks like Friday we might be thinking about doing an event that we haven't announced yet. But if you watch our Facebook page, that might be something to keep an eye out for. I'm also going to be on, I think it's Right Side Broadcasting Network tomorrow morning at 9:35. Let me just make sure I've got this right because I don't want to give people the wrong information.
Was it Real America's Voice or Right Side Broadcasting?
It might be Real America's Voice. I'm sorry.
Which is available on Pluto and other streaming services.
Yeah. Real America's Voice with Jessica Rivera tomorrow at 9:35.
And I think you told me that Josh Mandel was also invited to be on, and he's now declined since you're going to be on.
Yeah, they wanted to talk about the Mark Pukita, Josh Mandel, friction. And I said I'd go. I'd be on. I really wanted to talk about not religion, but the facade nature of Josh, and Josh's people, or Josh said that they're too busy. But I'll be on, and we'll talk about it.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to be wanted to do here is to talk about the next episode, which is here. Okay, so I am Mark. I am starting to already think about what would be on the next episode, and I think one of the things we're going to do, we've been putting off some content that I know that you're very interested in, and I'll put it on here. We're going to feature a profile. It's going to be super exciting, of a CPA firm called Winterset CPA Group Incorporated, and Winterset CPAs is near and dear to my heart. I have an accounting degree from college, but I never practiced in public accounting. And Winterset CPAs is, I know this is the CPA firm to the politically connected.
Yep.
So it's Dave Yost and others. And they are a special group, and we're going to talk about some of their practices as it relates to campaign finance reporting. When we live in a world where people like Nino Vital he shouldn't have done it, but he gets just totally ramrodded by the Secretary of State over advertising a concealed carry class on his campaign Facebook page. But we can have Larry Householder do $61 million of bribery, and we don't know what happened. We don't know where it happened.
Bill Logger's $50 million,
we don't know what
right?
happened. The guy that was the Rosenberger, the House, we don't know what happened. People that have done, but God forbid Nino Vital, he shouldn't have done it, by the way, but advertise a concealed carry. So that's going to be one of the topics that we have next time on the Truth Bomb. Mark, we're going to roll out of here. Do you have any closing comments that you would like to make?
I would just say that we're going to have a great show next week. That I know, Chris, we're doing a lot of work on digging into Winterset and all that. I'd love for people to join us on Thursday night at the Strongsville Forum. We're all about beating the swamp, saving America, and leaving Ohio better than we found it during the campaign. And I think we're making some great progress on that. Thanks a lot. God bless. Have a great week.
And check Mark's website, markforohio.com. You can find events. You can find the policy guide. You can find his agenda. You can request Mark to come to one of your events. And then if you're lucky, he brings the Pukita mobile with him with Sam, the driver,
right.
hustling Mark around in the RV. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on only the second edition of Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb. Hopefully you learned a lot, and hopefully we'll get more into the policy stuff as we go, Mark. Thanks, everybody.